Alright, it's been a while since I've done an episode of In Bed with Guitars. Really mostly because I can't afford a whole bunch of parts for my guitars, but I did get a chance to get some parts. This is my 80's made in Neptune Kramer XL II. It's a low-end, budget-friendly Kramer, and I put Dragonfire pickups and a custom dice whammy bar and some orange knobs on it and DR strings. The one problem I had was the saddles really weren't very good, and so I went ahead and put some like cheap generic saddles on it, and it's got a 2-pin bridge going on, which these are usually better than some of the stuff you can get, but those saddles right there are actually from a cheap bridge from another guitar. So I got some parts. The little bolts for my apparently they're like high tensile strength bolts for the Wilkinson bridges. One of them broke, and so I went ahead and the guitar it came off of, it was a Mitchell that had it. So I put a Fender, official Fender bridge, a 2-pin bridge on the Mitchell, and I'm happy with that. So I had this leftover bridge, and just recently I finally found the bolts on eBay. So this is the repaired Wilkinson bridge. And if you know about these bridges, you might be able to see already that the color of the bolts is different. And I thought they were kind of tight when I put them on a little. I hope they didn't do anything to the threads on it. This is the type of bridge. It's got your kind of hefty sustain block for the strings. The front holes are for the strings to come through to fit through the saddles, and then these lock the saddles down. The original bolts are like this, so they're black. And so, of course, I had one of them break, so of course I had to replace all of them, so I wouldn't have a black bolt and then a silver bolt or metal and then a whole bunch of black ones in there. So I went ahead and just replaced every one of them, and then I have these as whatever backups or something. But these are good. They're a really nice bridge. They're just like most Wilkinson stuff. They're surprisingly affordable for the level of quality you get. This one has a push-in whammy bar, and so this guy I'm going to try to put right here. And I've already lined it up a little, and I'm relatively certain it's going to fit okay. It's still got good blades. I'm sure the posts on there will match up. I don't think I'm going to have to replace them. I might test the threading on different posts to see if I need to replace them, but pretty sure the posts will be okay. And this should help with this guitar. The guitar also has a little bit of a short in the output jack, so I'll probably be addressing that. Alright, so just to kind of give a preview of what we're starting with here. clean and stuff like that, but who plays a Kramer electric guitar in clean. I don't know if that even happens. And it cuts in and out, which I'll show. Just see there, hear it? Oh, it's right here. So something in here. It's probably just the jack has a loose ground or something in there, so it'll just be as easy as pulling the jack out, soldering iron, you know, clearing off, tinning, resoldering the wire that goes to the output jack. That's going to fix that little problem. But the bridge and these guitars in general are flawed. I've done the neck, so it's super smooth. I've done the frets, everything's good. This guitar was used, and I showed it in a video that I did when I was running through my guitars, where somebody so kindly commented that all I had was a whole lot of nothing. You know, I just, POSs like that get on, and you know, no one's forcing you to watch my videos, and you know, I'm not wealthy, so what I can get is what I got, and I'm happy with what I have, you know, to a degree. Would I choose to have ridiculously expensive guitars? No. Even if I had the money, I wouldn't choose to, because I don't want something that is an asset that is a liability. You know, like if I had a Gibson that was worth $30,000 and then one day, I don't know, somebody bumped into it or something and it was immediately worthless because the headstock broke off or something. I wouldn't want a Fender that everyone knows I have that's super valuable and is a target for thieves or something. What I would rather have is a guitar that I know how to deal with personally and have worked on and adjusted to meet what I like. So what I like to play is usually some distortion and, you know, some rock. What's the problem with these cheaper Kramers? Made in Neptune. So made in Neptune 80's one. Now somebody screwed up the horn on it. They didn't want to fix a messed up strap hole, so they drilled a new strap hole, and this wasn't fixed properly. Amateur, common mistake. This one's okay though. Original, and it's an okay strap. What else do they do? Somebody, looks like possibly dropped a screwdriver or something on this, you know, sticky, glossy coated neck. I usually like the, you know, necks that are so finely sealed that it almost seems natural. You know, I'd prefer that. But this I love anyway, just because of the guitar that it is. It's a 80's made in Neptune Kramer. So I'm not going to complain about that. You can hear it shorting out constantly. That definitely has to be fixed. Hear it? There, now it's okay. So we already know what that is. Once I pull out the output jack, that's going to be a super quick, easy fix. I installed these pickups, I changed the knobs, I changed the saddles, I put the custom dice, orange dice whammy bar on it and stuff. So which of these these might go on something else, because the Wilkinson bridge has its own capless push-in trem bar. So that's going to go with this. But I don't know. I might figure out a way to, I don't know, put some orange dice on the end of that. And is it going to fix any kind of problems with this guitar? Well, the bridge isn't great. The knife edges on it have probably, you know, gotten pretty crappy over the years. So this will be fixed to a degree with a newer, better bridge, of course. But the big problem with this guitar, and it's a problem that this guitar had out of the box, is this type of headstock nut area. And you know, I mean, whatever. Someone can argue with me if they want about this. That's fine. Set this down so that it stops chirping on me here. But the big problem with these types of guitars, and this was also kind of like the experimental phase of how to answer for the lack of an expensive headstock, was this bar. And you know, you have this bar on the headstock right here. Okay, and so what the reason that's there is because to get the right type of break angle for the strings to stay in tune and to sound good, the earlier popular instruments had a curved headstock. It was angled, an angled headstock. The angles on Gibsons are sharper than the angles on Epiphones. The angles on these Fender-esque style or Jackson whatever types of guitars are not angled. So what Fender did was they came up with the string tree, or T, or whatever you want to call it. And it's a little metal grippy thing. Sometimes they're circular and they have groove little notches cut in them. Sometimes they're graphite or thick plastic. Sometimes they're round. I use the round ones, the little roller ones, on nearly every guitar. But what Kramer's answer was, and what some other manufacturers' answer for it was this bar. And this bar right here loves to screw with your tuning all the time. It's like, I don't know, probably the worst idea that anyone ever had for keeping a guitar in tune. Or, you know, and okay, if you don't have that, then the strings have no break angle and they're just kind of bending down across the nut and going to the tuning machines, and they sound really twangy and bad. They just sound horrible. So unless you really want that twangy sound, you need to have something down there to create an efficient break angle for your strings to meet up with the tuning machines. And like I just said, the answer for that with Kramer and with some other guys was this bar. So regardless of me replacing this bridge with a really great bridge, or a arguably better bridge, or whatever, it's still going to have that problem with that bar on the end. If I take the bar off and, you know, mess with the headstock, then that's just going to be, because it's going to be bad. This is an original, every part of it except when I got it, every part of it was original, and the pickups were crusty and old and nasty. Again, this guitar was not repaired properly when it had problems. The bridge is kind of bad. This is the original bridge, but not the original saddles. I put these on there from something else. These are upgraded knobs, upgraded whammy bar that was custom made from a really cool seller on eBay. And after I bought a couple of these, they stopped selling them, and I don't think he's come back. But he had mini billiard balls, pool balls, and he had lots of dice, and I loved it. Really great price. But you know, if I'm going to choose what type of trem bar I'm going to have on any guitar, it's not going to be a rattly, scratchy, you know, shifty, screw-in trem bar. You know, this was a Fender thing from whenever, the 50s or something. And this is also another flaw. And the push-in ones have a kind of a plastic barrier and then a hex bolt trap underneath the bridge that grabs on nice and tight. And you can adjust the tension on the bar more easily, and you can just, it doesn't rattle at all. So the push-pull arms are just, you know, infinitely better than the screw-in arms. Now, some guys on YouTube and elsewhere have put like a whatever pipe dope plumber tape kind of answer to this rattliness. Whatever. If you want to put tape on there, you got a gummy, nasty mess inside of your bridge, but it might keep this from rattling around. Another way is to over tighten it, but then you're just going to be messing with the top threads as you force it into a tight position to work it out. Now, when you use this bridge, because of that bar at the headstock fighting with the tension of the strings already, you're not going to get this to stay in tune. I would argue that if you had the best bridge money could buy and redid all of this and everything, the bar at the end that's on the headstock would detune the guitar when using the trem bar. So it's kind of a novelty almost. It's a novelty level of use, because you're getting catchiness at the nut, you're getting catchiness at the bar, you're getting whatever's happening to the knife edges on your pins, on your bridge. Everything's contributing to the strings not staying in tune. If this was a fixed bridge, which, why would I do that? You know, I'm not going to do that. Then the detuning would just happen with bends and shifting of the strings at that bar at the headstock. So probably not the best, you know, trem bar, screeching whammy bar guitar to play, but I love the guitar because it's got the Kramer style body, which this is my favorite guitar body of all time. If I could just pick a guitar body, and it's close to it's close to a Fender, you know, like what came out with in the 50s and stuff, the Stratocaster. Got some dust in here. It's close to that design, but it's a little different. It has a little bit thinner belly cut. It has a little bit wider. I'm going to go ahead and just unplug this. Has a little bit wider bottom on there. Plug this into a non-messed up output there. Okay. So yeah, now this is usually slightly rounder on the Pacers or on the more expensive ones by Kramer. I think this is very close though, the horn here, and this is where that design is. So yeah, I'm yammering on about this though. Now the neck I really like. After some work on it, it turned out great. It never had fret hang, but it did have some use on the frets. So once they were leveled, crown polished, that improved. If you've listened to my other videos, you know that I will always prefer maple over rosewood or ebony or whatever, and I really, like most of my decisions with guitar, and many other things, it has to do with a type of attraction and aesthetic quality before functionality or reason. So if someone were to prove to me that this is a harder, more durable, or even possibly better sounding, but I doubt that's going to happen, than maple, I still would want maple, because maple is attractive to me and it looks amazing and it plays good and it sounds good. Yes, it's softer. You might be able to get a fingernail in there and mess up a maple neck, but you probably could do that with rosewood or even ebony, which is extremely hard. I'm not interested in the value of exotic woods. I'm more interested in how it appeals to me, and I have a lot of rosewood necks. I have, I think, maybe one either ebony or fake ebony neck that's mostly inlays, like dragon inlays. And I have a lot of maple necks. So I've played all of them. I played the maple, I played rosewood, I played the ebony stuff. And I like maple better. It's just how I feel about it. And one day, if I decide to, I might replace this neck entirely. I might just put a maple neck on it. You know, maybe a Fender style maple neck. That would get rid of the little bar, the angle bar that's up at the headstock. The nut on this guitar is cut really, really good though, and it doesn't buzz much, if at all, and sounds really good. The strings are slightly higher than what I usually try to get with my height, but I'm very happy with everything about the playability of it. If it would stay in tune well with the whammy bar and stuff, then it would be that much better of a guitar. But it doesn't affect how well it plays. It plays really, really great. It's just that's just a normal problem when you have strings that aren't really stretched in or broken in real good. You have any kind of flexation moving kind of bridge, be it Floyd Rose or 6-screw or 2-pin or whatever. You're going to have detuning problems with the strings. Until the strings are broken in, the nut is just right. You're not having any kind of catchy, grabby stuff with the string trees or the angle bars or whatever's at the headstock, and the springs are just right. The springs have a lot to do with it. You hear a lot of buzzing can come from the springs being too loose, even though they hold everything just right. You might need your springs to be a little more secure, and also the height and the level of these positioning little bolts on your saddles. If one of these is holding the saddle up, but the other one is just a little high, then you'll get rattling from that small area when the vibration from the string reaches the saddle. So sometimes if you're getting that buzzing, people think immediately frets on the neck. Buzzing is frets on the neck, but it's really not that way. It can be relief, it can be the nut, it can be the stability beyond the nut on string trees or the angle bars. It can also be the bolts holding up the bridge. It can be the springs. It can be a lot of different factors. It also could be how low the strings are or how you're playing. I mean, so a person that plays with their fingers might very rarely, if ever, get any buzzing off of a guitar. But then if a person grabs a big, meaty, heavy plastic pick and starts to jam on it, they're going to have low G buzzing, or low E buzzing, I mean, pretty much all the time. So it has a lot to do with how you play, and of course, the strings, how the strings are laid across the fretboard. But this does not buzz much, if at all. It's a great instrument, even though it's one of these cheap ones. I've heard stories that the made in Neptune, New Jersey ones were actually either made in, I don't know, Indonesia, China, Japan, anywhere but the USA, and then they were either inspected, assembled, or, I don't know, touched and then put in a box by someone in the USA. It wasn't accurate. Now, I have the Striker series that's also made in Neptune from the 80s, and I just totally love that guitar. And it's got the Pacer style body, but it's got it's got a nice Floyd Rose, relatively good. It's got great neck, frets are great. I love everything about it. It's a nice heavy guitar. So yeah, I don't have a Pacer though. I think I would pick a Pacer, just because I love everything about it. I love every single tiny little thing about it. And the newer Pacers that are, they're basically budget guitars now. I like them. I'd like to get one of them. They're about $300 or so. The Gibson-owned Kramer Pacers. They're either the Classic Series or the Pacer Series. They have those two different names, and they're, I think, Indonesia, possibly Chinese, and they're just the same dimensions, but possibly not the same high level quality specs as the original Pacer guitars, which it's fine. If it's always production. If it's the more hands on it, chances are the better it's going to be, and the less hands on it and less attention to detail, the worse it's going to be out of the box. And so to equalize that, the amount of work you're willing to do is going to bring that guitar up and up and up as you're doing that. You take it to somebody, and then immediately the amount you paid for it is going to meet or exceed what it would cost to just get one that had more hands on it. So the only real way for one of these budget instruments to be worth it, so to speak, is if somebody that's willing to do and knows how to do their own work on the guitar is going to do that. So, I'm not one of these people telling you that a, Glary out of the box is better than a Squier or a Fender or something, because it's just really not how it is. Even though the standards have shifted a lot, and people aren't so ready to just buy something because of its label. They're not going to go, oh, that's a Fender, so it's definitely going to be good. Fenders come out of the box and they buzz, and it could be a $1,200 to $1,500 Fender. There's a video where Rhett Shull goes to a music store and a guy takes what must be over $2,000 Shure guitar, and it buzzes. He plays it, it buzzes, and the guy that plays it says, well, there's different kind of buzzing. There's buzzing that is picked up by the pickups, and it distorts and messes with your sound, and then there's just mild, in the realm of acceptable level buzzing. But who wants to pay $2,000 for a guitar, and right when you strum it, you're hearing the low E buzz like crazy all the time? So that does happen. And but with the factory guitars, you get a factory guitar that is really, really good right out of the box. Well, when they manufactured it, they were, going as fast as they could, but they still met the dimensions and specifications. Maybe not, quality-wise, but definitely number-wise for that guitar. So you can get good stuff, but, your chance of getting, an irreparable turd is a lot higher with a cheap, super low-end instrument. So anyway, I'm going to replace the bridge. Hear that? I'm going to replace the bridge. I'm going to fix the output jack. Laid down my old used cotton t-shirt, too dirty to wear, although I've been known to wear some pretty dirty shirts. Okay, that's off. Usually I'll use a one of those little tuner wrench thingies that you get, little cheap plastic tuner string wrench things or whatever. They're super fun, make life a lot easier. But actually, once you get your string down to where it can loop over the top of the post, then you can just unravel it. I had these wound probably a little too much. So yeah, as I unwind this, it's going to get closer and closer to the width of the top of the post here where it can pop out. And then once it comes off once, then unraveling the string is really easy. Probably won't, I don't know if I'm going to, probably won't you reuse these strings. I'm one of those people that will reuse strings. I don't care. Some guys out there, if they fart near their strings, then it's time to change them. I'm not like that. I have strings that have been on my guitars for a year or more, and once they get like smelling like naugahyde or visibly nasty, can't be cleaned up and fixed up, then I'll replace my strings. But I don't have the money to just constantly replace strings. What strings do I use? I'll use DRs and GHS strings. GHS boomers are some of, if not the cheapest, good strings that you can get. You can get like probably 12 packs of them for, I don't know, around 60 something dollars, 60 or 70 bucks. And you don't ever buy, unless you're testing out a new string, don't ever buy strings one pack at a time, because you are going to pay the highest price possible and waste your money. If you like a string and you know you're going to use it all the time, buy that string in bulk so that you will get 6 to 12 bags or more of those strings all at once. And there are good Chinese strings, but all the strings that I use are made in the USA. So I like that. And now, you know, made in the USA, what does that mean? What does made in the USA mean? Well, it could mean a lot of stuff. Made in the USA could mean that you're giving factory workers a tiny amount of money, but the Russian, Chinese, or Korean, or you know, Arabic owner of the factory is making the highest amount of money from what you're buying. So it could also mean, if you buy from China, that the money, a tiny amount of the money is going to Chinese labor, and a whole bunch of the money is going to an American who owns that Chinese factory. So, you know, we really need to stop it with the regional biases when it comes to things, because just because something says made in the USA on it doesn't mean that the owner lives in the USA or is a USA resident, or that it is truly benefiting workers. Usually it's going to be a little bit of money going to workers, but it's the, you know, entry level or medium to low level income workers that are benefiting from made in the USA, and then whoever owns that factory. And that could be anyone. It could be anyone at all, no matter what, from any country, because this is a free country. You know, your money could be going to whoever, China. So yeah, missing a screw here, I don't know why. But back, just like back with Kramer, they knew, even back in 1986 and 1989 and stuff, that made in the USA was a really big deal. And so they stamped Neptune, New Jersey, USA right here. And so people, oh, you have to have a made in the USA guitar because those are the best ones. But then they found out later, wait a minute, this was made in Japan. But honestly, stuff that's made in Japan is as good or better, often better, than things made anywhere else in the world. Phillip McKnight did a video recently. He's a really inspirational YouTuber that I love. I love that what he's doing now are shorter excerpts from his videos, kind of to soften people up. He'll do a 2 or 3 hour long video, and is really like, he's familial with people. It's like they're a big group and they all love and know each other, and he will talk to and address everyone's questions and let everybody participate. But in turn, that takes 2 or 3 hours of your time, and so his views might be lower. So what he's done in this world of shorts that are, you know, TikToking and whatever, taking over the internet, I think he's kind of, his answer to that is to take an excerpt from his videos. And in one of his recent videos, he did a let's see, I think I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, he did. He was talking about the stated dimensions and materials used in guitars and the accuracy of said materials. And he said, of course, by a great magnitude, the Chinese-made instruments had the least accurate descriptions when it came to the materials used. So it would say that it's a certain type of neck wood, but it would be a different, cheaper kind of neck wood. It would say that the body was a certain type of wood, like basswood or something, and it would be a different type of wood on the body. The measurements would say it's this long, but it would be a different measurement, and so you couldn't really trust what it was saying. Well, and then after going through that, you know, short little descriptor of the conditions of manufacture in those Chinese instruments, he said the second on the list of the worst one was the USA. So he's saying straight up that, you know, if you read what your guitar is supposed to be, you read the measurements and the materials used, and then that's got your eyebrow up and you're saying, well, they use this material or that material, or it's this type of guitar, that type. Then you order it and you get it. Well, there's a high chance that if it's Chinese, then the material is not going to be accurate, and there is also a high chance if it's American that the material is not going to be accurate. So, you know, and he didn't say where Japan stood in comparison, at least not in his little short excerpt from his video, but I would think that Japan was probably very, very low on the list because they have an extremely high sense of quality and detail. Like, you know, the Japanese, I've always felt this way since I've started, you know, paying attention to things like that, that Japanese quality is second to none. They have the highest level of quality and the best prices. Like, Yamaha stuff is just some of the very best stuff you can possibly get. You know, is the Yamaha brand, and they have a ton of different stuff. They're like a universal company. But if you see 3 pitchforks on something, it's probably very high quality. The Yamaha guitars are very high quality, and they're always a really good price. And Japan, you know, that's where your Sony, PlayStation 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and stuff come from. Like, they're giving you the stuff that you want. And you know, everybody has a smartphone or a cell phone or stuff, but they've linked those to child labor practices in China. So, you know, people will ignore it if it's something that they feel that they have to have. But if it's one of these frivolous items that people walk at and think, you know, why didn't you buy American? So, oh, well, then we can attack it. It's like, well, why do you even have a Apple iPhone if it... And I've talked about this in previous videos, and you know, maybe I'm wrong about this, but probably not. I seriously doubt it. But there are no guitars being made by, you know, forced child labor in China. They've shown videos of the place that they call Guitar City in China, and they are all like aspiring luthier and little mechanical workers working on and making all these guitars. They don't make a lot of money, but they don't have to because they live in the city where they work. And they're making a ton of these Chinese guitars that people get. He also talked about that in his video, how many millions of guitars came out of the Cort factory in Indonesia, and the level of quality that they've achieved on those instruments. So we've got, there we go, and that lines up. That is lining up. And part of the reason why, when they made this, they kept this side flat and gave you some room on this bridge here, is so this could accommodate slightly wider or shorter pins. And of course, people might yell, got to replace the pins or something like that. It's not necessary with this situation. The important part is the blade on the bridge. And the one that was in it actually has this going for it here. It's thick, and then it gets thinner here. So this really isn't, as I'm feeling it, it's a little tiny bit wobbly. It needs to be tightened up. But other than the blades, which are from the 80s, and really aren't that bad, they still have a lot of life in them, this is an okay bridge. What I'll probably do is repurpose this bridge on something else, and I'll replace the saddles so that they're better, higher quality saddles, because these are just really cheap, and they're okay, but they're not. You know, they're probably not saddles that I would recommend. But the saddles that were on it had you know, nasty corroded and just all around messed up, and so these were fresh new ones off a cheap guitar. But this bridge is pretty heavy and pretty wide, and it's not bad. It's good. I think this is an alright one. I don't like how it wobbles. That's just tightening screws on the face of the bridge, though. That's really nothing. So that's going to be on there. It looks like it has all the clearance that it needs. Once the springs are on it, that should be okay. It looks level. Looks can be deceiving, but I like how it looks. Of course, I really love these Wilkinson bridges. I love how they sound. They have kind of a smooth wobble to them, and they're really good. Like Wilkinson stuff all around is pretty much, even the cheap Wilkinson stuff is made to a higher standard than the cheap stuff that's around it. A good example is Glary. Glary guitars have a GST Stratocaster style guitar. Their entry-level, super cheap one you might find for 60 to 80 bucks or something, and it's okay. You know, you can. It's a great modding platform, or if you're willing to put some work into it, it's a great beginner instrument. But then they made a second one, the GST II, and it came with cheap but Wilkinson branded pickups, and they are comparatively better than the other pickups. They sound really, really good. They're cheap, but they just sound great. They have such a great sound. I love them. They're some of my favorites. I love cheap pickups, though. You know, Spectre sound, the, you know, fun but foul-mouthed studio engineer, Glenjamin, he points out that, you know, the speaker is everything. Your output is everything, and that a lot of this little stuff here, it is inconsequential. Wood type, even pickup type and bridge and stuff like that. Granted, if it's a screwed up guitar, it's a screwed up guitar, but I mean, if the guitar is sound enough to get consistent notes out of it, then you're going to be able to tweak and adjust anything, and then the true sound is the speaker. It's what's coming out of here. So I use a good set of speakers. I try to have some good speakers for my stuff, but I trust him on that. I think he's absolutely accurate in that surmising of the condition. And people, and of course, there are salesmen. We're dealing with salesmen, and salesmen need you to buy this or that or the other. Actually, I probably should do the middle one first. And so then, just like with anything, you need it, they've got it, and so once they convince you that you need it and they've got it, then they've convinced you that it makes a great big difference, and when it usually doesn't. And you know, honestly, that's not working. That's not working at all. When it comes down to it, the old stuff, even though it had more hands on it and stuff, some of the materials weren't so great, right? What's a good example of that? Bakelite. Bakelite is a good example of it. The precursor to modern plastic was this, oh yeah, of course, that's all crooked and wacky. The precursor to plastic was this stuff called Bakelite, and it was a combination of certain things to make a plastic-like substance, and so back in the day, before plastic was everywhere, and maybe it was expensive or they hadn't figured out the chemical compositions of it and stuff, they had Bakelite, okay? And it would dry out and shrink and get brittle and lose color and leach chemicals and things. And some of those are properties of modern plastic, but it was a, you know, failed attempt at kind of a precursor to plastic. So even though things might have been made with it, and you can say that things that were made long ago are better, in many cases they aren't. They're not better, because back then they did do everything by hand, and they did have to come up with materials as answers for things. So with, you know, the advancement of technology, and with computers and everything along with it, we can make things better, cheaper, and we do have those capabilities. To say that something that was made in the 40s or 50s or something has to be better, no, actually we have exceeded it. So it might even be that the level of quality that you're getting out of something at the entry level today is where it was at the professional level long ago. So we're not in error really with that by saying that. Does that mean that a glary is as good as a 50s Stratocaster? Probably not, but they have done it so much that they know what they're doing now, and they're getting, you know, acceptable results. It's great to know that you can start somebody at the beginner level, and with a little bit of work you can give them something that's really good. And I think that just pulled all of those springs right out of there, didn't it? Yes, it did. Wow. Perfect. Okay, so because of its being a really fickle with me right now, to line this up, I'm probably going to have to pull the claw closer so there's almost no tension. I think it wants to have strings on it. So if I put strings on it, those will kind of pull it up and help hold it in place. But yeah, the way this knife edge bridge is, as I apply pressure from the spring, it wants to pull it up over the pins. But yeah, like, okay, what was Bakelite used in? Let me think. Pipes. Bakelite was used in pipes for the mouthpiece. And because it was considered safe, and it could be shaped. And so a lot of those older pipes that people would buy had the precursor to plastic, Bakelite. And another thing that had it was the World War II pistols. They started with wood grips on their pistols, and then they're like, oh, we have to make 1 million of these things, so let's change it. We're not going to have some professional carving, you know, little flat wood pieces and checkering them and stuff, because we got to pay them. You got to pay a woodworker to do that. So what are we going to do? We're going to put Bakelite. Oh, that came off. We're going to put Bakelite on there, and so around World War II, when the Colt 1911, or I guess the M1A or 1911, the military issue of it, which had improvements, had a Bakelite grips. And of course, people want authenticity, so they buy loose Bakelite grips for their 1911. And then what do they get? They get a piece of shrunken Bakelite that won't fit on the gun handle because the Bakelite has leached its chemical composition and dried and hardened and shrunk, and you can't put it. It's a scam. But back then it was cheaper than wood, and it didn't have to be carved and have some professional woodworker do all this work on it. So it made sense. It actually made sense to do that. Oh, come on. I think that's almost on there. Ugh. I might have to put the whammy bar back on there. I don't think this one. Let me see. There we go. Even with that on there like that, holding it in place, it still wants to come loose. And I don't know, it looks to me like the strings might not line up perfectly once they're on there. So let's see. Oh boy, it's just going all over the place. Wow. I think I remember having fun, little problems like this trying to get the springs put in a different 2-pin bridge recently, where it just didn't want to agree. And I'm sure if I tighten those springs anymore, it's going to pop itself up out of there. So, what's the answer? Jam something in it. That's the answer. It's quite often the answer with working on guitars. How do I fix this? Jam something in it. So what I'll probably end up doing is jamming something in there. I didn't prepare for this properly. Usually when I prepare for doing stuff like this, I have my tool kit open and have all kinds of stuff laying around, and I test everything, and I really should have done that. I should have tested the neck and tested the frets and everything. This I just wanted to do quick and throw the bridge on there. So I'm going to find something to jam under here. Okay. So I went ahead and put a little survival rape whistle on there, which I will never need. Okay. GHS boomers. GHS boomers were made for the Pink Floyd The Wall project. Okay, I don't know if that was like something they did after it or before it or during it, or if it was the actual thing or what, but that is where GHS strings, the boomers, were invented. And so if you say GHS strings suck, they're cheap, and blah, 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 well, they're made in America, and they were invented for the Pink Floyd The Wall project. So if you like the way Pink Floyd sounds, then maybe you'll like GHS strings. I don't know if they make them the same way or what, but I know that I like them. They are extremely good sounding. And well, I love them. I think they're the best guitar string for the money that you can possibly get. I think if you want to pay slightly more, then go with DRs. I think DRs are sometimes better. I like the neons a lot, and that's just aesthetics. The neon strings look super cool in black light and in low light conditions. They look neat. So neons are cool, but also DR just makes really super good strings. For a while there I was getting the Dimebag Darrell edition strings, and they were really, really great strings. only slightly more expensive. You can still get them in bulk, and you know, they're just all around excellent strings. DR is probably the best. People will argue with that. I've also thought recently, I saw a video on YouTube about using 13s, and and the strings the guy used were Ernie balls, which I never use. I used Ernie balls way back before I knew anything about what I liked or what sound I wanted or cost or anything. It was all just, oh, Ernie balls, that's cool, buy those, use those. So before I knew anything, I was using those a little bit, and that's probably back when I played 8's and was breaking E strings, the low high E strings all the time, and being sad because I couldn't play because I kept, and a lot of times I would just keep playing, you know, on 3-string, 2-string, no string guitars. Eventually I went through lots of it. Diodarios, however you want to pronounce it. I pronounce it Diodarios. So I don't care if Italians tell me one way, or enthusiasts or professionals, or even the manufacturers tell me. I'm calling them Adidas, and I'm calling them Diodarios. And I don't care, yo. And I tried those. I tried a ton of different strings. Cheap ones, expensive ones, and everything. And when I tried the GHS ones, I was like, these are the best strings that I've ever used, and they're the cheapest strings I've ever used. So they always sound really, really good. All strings get dead, and when that happens, you gotta change them out. But so I'm not going to say they're you know, whatever, longer lasting than this or that string or whatever, but they do last a pretty long time, and they sound really, really good. So for the money, GHS boomers for your electric guitar, do that. You won't regret it, because they sound great, but also, you know, they're not expensive. You can get 12 of them. 12 packs of them. 12 packs for like 60 bucks or 70 bucks or something like that. That alone should turn people's heads. I just realized I messed up. And this was a problem I have with this bar, is I wanted to put it in there, but that's not how that goes. So I get to undo that and redo it the right way. I feel like an idiot doing that. But at least I figured it out before it was all done and had to do, you know, redo it. Whatever. No big whoop. But yeah. DRs, though, have really great sounding strings, but they also use all kinds of like scientific kind of coatings and things. They have coated strings, and that's supposed to make them last longer, sound better. Or they have the dragon skin acoustic strings. I've used those, and I'm very pleased with them. They last a long time, and they sound relatively good. They are arguably less fidelity. They're not as loud. But you know, with acoustics, I guess, you know, modern acoustics are even often usually amplified somehow. And so maybe a slightly dampened but still good sounding string is maybe what you want. So I really like them. So they have an answer for everything with the DRs. They have lots of different kinds of strings, and you can get them in bulk. DRs are, I don't know, they're my favorite of the more slightly expensive strings, but GHS boomers are my favorite strings of all time, because you can get, you can get so many of them for a good price. And you know, I play, and I do record my own music. I plan on maybe one day using my music in a animation project or a video game that I make, maybe for the Sega CD or something, but I'm not a stage performer. I'm not someone that's, you know, wearing out strings, playing 100 shows, or even, you know, doing covers at a bar somewhere. So I'm not that guy. I'm someone who plays, and I come up with my own songs, and I play bass and keyboard and drums and guitar and stuff, and I try to make my own songs, but I'm more on Glenn's side of the fence, where your speaker has more to do with your output and your final sound than your strings or your pickups or your wood that your guitar is made of, your brand of guitar, how expensive it is, any of that stuff. The end result is that those speakers are what matter. Okay, so okay, now I'm into the not wound ones, and the strings I use, I started on 8s and 9s, broke them constantly, moved up to 10s several years into playing, and those were what was right for me. I've never moved out of 10s. I use 10, 13, 17, 26, 36, 46 all the time for everything. So I can, for a short time, I tried the Dave Mustaine's Signature Edition Progressives, and I was very impressed with how those sound, but I was not impressed with how expensive they are. The sound is great though. I would recommend those two. The Progressive strings, they just sound incredible. But they're thicker gauge. They're like a lot of metal guitarists. They have a fatter top end, and then the high strings are thin. So, you know, they might be 10, 13, and then go up like maybe 18, 20, and then they're at 50 or something when they've got up to the low E. And that's probably because it's not going to be a low E, it's going to be a drop D or even lower kind of tuning that they might use to chug. So, and I really like those strings. But when I settled with 10s, I also then settled with the 10, 13, 17, 26, 36, 46 sizes of strings. And it makes it easier, if you can do that, to buy strings, because you already know what sizes you're always going to use. Now, some people talk about testing out strings and moving up to this or that high or low and this gauges, and you know, playing electric cables instead of, you know, little plastic hairs or whatever. But what you don't hear a lot about, and this is just advice for beginners, is try a bunch of different sizes, get into what you like, but also be prepared to get the nut and the spring tension and the bridge and the neck all readjusted to match the tensions of the thicker strings, and the width especially. If you have your nut cut to a 46, then you move to 52s or something, this might have to be widened so you don't have a snaggy, trapped up, detuning low E or drop D or whatever this string ends up being. And also by that rationale, if you move to lighter strings, you might end up with some kind of sloppy, seated, shifty strings in a nut that's cut too wide. So you don't just say, oh, I'm breaking strings a lot, I'm going to move to fatter strings, and then you just slap them on your guitar and that's the answer. You're probably going to have to get bridge, neck, spring, and nut adjustments to go with drastic changes in string gauge. But I had considered trying out the 13s, and the 13s are called, and I thought this was just excellent, they're called Not Even Slinkies. And I just love that. They're Ernie Ball who does the Slinkies, Super Slinkies, but their string that is the super fat gauge is called Not Even Slinkies. It's like, I love it so much. So if you get fat gauge like 13s or something and want to try them out, which I've heard are intimidating but not at all to be avoided. Like you're going to be surprised at how they're really not that hard to play. Stevie Ray Vaughan, I guess, played like super fat strings all the time. So if you're influenced by him, maybe you want to get some super fat strings. Try to play his style or something. But I want to try them. I want to try the Not Even Slinkies, and so I'll probably pick a guitar and set it up and adjust it and all that to use those power cable, finger killing, gigantic, super thick gauge strings, just to try them out, just to see it. I might like them. I might fall in love and it changes my life, and then I'm like, okay, from now on I'm playing 13s. And then maybe somebody will pick my guitar up and go, oh my God, I can't even push these strings down, what are you doing? And I'll be like, oh, I use Not Even Slinkies, size 13s. It's ridiculous. But yeah, whatever. That's probably going to break because it got a kink in it. But it does not mean that you can just slap any old gauge of string on any guitar and it's just going to be totally fine. If you find that you have, maybe you're a beginner and you are running through the different gauges, and so your guitar's nut is cut for 8s and you say, I need thicker strings, and then you go out the store with some 10s, well, your nut slots might be needing to be widened. Your spring tension for your bridge might need to be increased a little bit. Your saddles, if it affects it, might need to be raised or lowered to fit the different gauge. It is not just a plug and play situation where you can just, you know, have a box of all gauges of strings and someone out there might argue with me. Perhaps if you have a Floyd Rose locking nut, you can ignore what I just said, because those have little kind of carrot divot catches on the locking nut, and so in theory most strings should seat down into that and not have too much of a problem. But when you have a bone, graphite, plastic, or what, ivory, illegal, poached elephant tusk nut, or whatever you're using, it's going to need to be matching the gauge of your strings to avoid vibration, detuning, and whatever other stuff. I would like to use graphite nuts, and I'll likely start upgrading the nuts on the necks that I'm not exactly 100% happy with. I'll probably upgrade with graphite or that tusk, which is, I think, a natural kind of synthetic fake, and they just call it TUSQ. It's not tusk. It's not like, it's not a fascist elephant leg trash can. It's a synthetic. Okay, so those are on there. And yes, I'm not looking like some professional. I've worked on, you know, a little over 30 guitars now, and I know what I'm doing, but I'm not doing this to look good. I'm doing it to get it done. So if you watch me and go, oh, that guy's crazy, okay, that's fine. We've established that. And you're going to, like, and I've said this was a theme in my my Strat building videos. I'm the king of unpopular opinion. So I'll tell you, I don't like Diodario's. Why do I not like Diodario's? Is it the sound? Is it the tension? Is it the feel? Is it the longevity? Is it the anything? No, it's that they're always on every cheap guitar you get. So why? And when you go to buy them, you're buying them one package at a time usually, and so you're paying the highest amount, and they don't sound any better than the other strings that I've tried and I like. Are they good strings? I'm absolutely positive they're good strings. Diodario's are good strings. But those usually aren't the ones that I pick out. Are Ernie Ball's good strings? Probably. they're probably pretty good strings. That's what I played in the beginning, just because they were called Ernie balls. You know, like if they had if they had pickups called Bert's Nuts, I might buy those too to go with my Ernie balls. I don't know. So, strings are on it. New bridge is on it. Okay, got that on there. I don't know which one of these is the whammy bar. This thick one is telling me that it's the whammy bar, but when I put it in there, the lack of any kind of catch is telling me that either it's not, or the adjustment screw in it is way, way too loose. So I'll check the adjustment screw. The back plate doesn't go back on until I have tuned. This bridge will be way up because the springs were loosened to fit the bridge on, and then I'll have to screw the claw in. Also, I found my problem, and it was the grounding here, which is totally loose now. The grounding cable, which I will grab with the greatest tool ever here. Loose. See, that's just floating around. So that needs cleaned thoroughly. This needs cleaned off and re-tinned, possibly cut, and resoldered to ground the instrument. Okay, got the springs on there. That might have been what was causing it to cut in and out, or this might just be an additional crappy thing I get to work on. Okay, so need to check. Yeah, that's on there. So get a hex wrench, or if you want to remind some guy how much he got picked on, Allen wrench. There we go. Yeah. Heaven forbid your name be Dick or Alan or John in our world, right? You're going to hear about it. John, I have to go to the bathroom. John, will you come here so I can sit on you and take a dump? Alan, what are you, a big walking wrench? Dick, oh no, your name is Dick. I got lucky because there are truck caps named Jason, so I'm a truck cap. How about that? Whoop-de-doo. Okay, that is not tightening at all in the slightest bit. And that's the adjustment screw. Oh wait, it's the side pin, and it is not there. So that's almost kind of scary. Like that's supposed to be there, but it's not. Look there. Okay. I don't know what size pin is going to go in there, but so I think I've established that this is the bar, but something is terribly wrong here. I don't know if the plastic ring came out for this to fit in there with, but I know at the very least the little screw-in part here, the bolt part, is the threaded little headless screw-in thing here is missing. So I'm going to try to find something to put in there that's the same size. I probably have the piece that goes to it sitting in there in my drawer. Either way, that is pretty much inconsequential right now. That's all frivolous compared to tuning and setting up the bridge. Okay. Alright, I can already tell that's wanting to kind of pop out of there. So, I just noticed that this had started pulling the little seating threading part here out of the body. So I have to get this hammer and beat this back in there. Just as if I was installing it fresh and new. And even then, something just kind of doesn't seem right about it. It's still too high up. Yeah, that's got that low too. Odd. I don't know if that started happening with the last bridge or if it was always like that, because now, well, of course, once the bridge goes up, this string is going to be raised up. So yeah, fun times. Hopefully that doesn't just yank itself right out of there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and tune this up. And we're going to see this come up. The springs underneath it are now tensioned. And the one that had a kink in it broke, of course. And it probably broke right where the kink was. And that's wonderful. That's exactly what you want to happen. You know what's really great though is a lot of strings come with extra strings. They figure you're a crazy person and you're going to need more strings. So and I actually have replacement strings put back from those sets I've used, and hopefully I'll have a 13 somewhere in there that can be used. And of course, because I have this bridge set slightly high, much like a floating bridge, it's going to go all out of whack once the string breaks. And I can already tell the bridge seems very low. There are height adjustments on these saddles, and they've already been tuned down or pushed down a little bit to raise the saddles. With the Wilkinson saddle adjustments, you don't have to worry about them stabbing up because the length of the little adjustment piece is already within the confines of the top of the saddle. So unlike a 6-screw or 2-pin Fender style bridge, you don't have to worry about your hand rubbing up against really scratchy, sharp stuff based on how you've adjusted your saddles. So that helps. I can tell it's raising up too, the way it's supposed to. And of course, you know, this is all going to need to be redone when I put the other string on. I'm just getting the bridge up so that the blades can be, you know, where they're supposed to be on the pins. Okay. That's going to have to be adjusted. Now, with these Wilkinson bridges, you really have to be very, very careful, because if you adjust the height of the saddle while this little retaining bolt is pulling down and clamping this saddle piece against the bridge plate, then you're going to be having a tension battle going on here between the bolt and the little rising screw pieces, and it's going to break. It's either going to break the bolt or it's going to do something to these pieces here, to the threading or whatever, usually the bolt. And something that I thought was interesting, I thought was kind of humorous, was the bolt's tension was listed, like in whatever, pounds of torque, and it was very high. And I'm just sitting there thinking, there's no way that I applied that much force when the bolt broke. I actually had, like I said earlier, one of these bolts, probably this one, or this one, broke. It snapped. So I had to take the plate off to get in there and get the piece of the broken bolt off, which wasn't a problem. But then getting these replacement pieces, I'm pretty sure as they were listed they were black and they appeared to be the same part. But what they sent me is metal, silverish metal colored here, and it is not, it's the same length, and it appears to be the same thread, but I don't know, and it doesn't have like this gap between the thread and the top that the original pieces had. So I mean, I guess they're, you know, aftermarket acceptable replacement components, but they are not identical to the original components. So we'll see how that works out. So yeah, if you're me and you play these DRs and GHS and stuff, or whatever strings, you'll probably have these. And if you look close on there, see it says 3rd and 6th string. Well, on the 2nd and 5th string, it had an extra 2nd string. And so yes, this is funky and weird, but I'm actually putting a DR B string on this guitar. And I think these are hopefully some compatible screw-in components with the sustain bar, or the trem bar, I mean. We'll see. Now the theme of my show, In Bed with Guitars here, is that I'm doing all of this work sitting on my bed in my bedroom slash living room, programming, video game room area. And so you know, it may seem a little amateurish, but I can tell you it's extremely comfortable. This is one of those multi-layered space foam mattresses. So I guess, you know, you could say that my guitar work table is a multi-$100 multi-layered space foam pad, and then maybe it will feel better there that it's not, you know, some quack just sitting on his bed. But I'm doing this with, like I said, one of my old white t-shirts. I'm a white t-shirt kind of guy. I like to wear white t-shirts all the time. It feels great, and you know, you can get like a bag of 10 of them for like 30 bucks or something. And, you know, why bother? Why bother with a whole bunch of other stuff when you can just get 10 super comfortable, long-lasting, nice white cotton t-shirts for pennies on the dollar or whatever. Very cheap. They last a long time, but when they finally get enough, you know, when they finally get enough tang and coffee and dirt and nasty stuff all over them, then they get resurrected as a work cloth. So you get that, you know, it's hard to use, you know, a super nice shirt that you've got that's gotten torn up or dirty or stained to where you can't use it. It's kind of not as easy, I don't think, to just immediately use that as a it's not as easy to just immediately repurpose that as a work rag. But white t-shirts are notoriously perfect for resurrecting as work rags. You can wipe your guitar down with a white t-shirt. I guess if you're, you know, if you need to, you can blow your nose on it. You can clean with it and all kinds of stuff. Okay, let's see if this is the right size. I think these were for a bridge or something. They're like higher posts in case you need them, something like that. But they might be the right width. Actually, I'm looking, they don't look like they are. Let's see. Okay. Like they use the smaller size hex wrench. And up it came out, of course, very easily. and it might be loose, but it also might be absolutely perfect. Let me get a couple of spins on it here to try to get it snagged up in there. Ah, okay, so I think that will work. I think it's the right diameter for, and of course they probably made it that way. They're like, I'll just use the same exact thing that you use for riser, little riser pegs or whatever, the saddles and stuff. Okay, so that's in there kind of. Let's get the and I like mine to be high up. I like my whammy bar to be, I don't know, kind of high up. Something's up here. I don't know if there's supposed to be a thicker plastic ring that has somehow fallen out or been taken out. I wouldn't have taken it out, I don't think. So I don't know if everything's exactly right with this bridge in there. If this doesn't work, then I might need to go dig around and see if there was a plastic piece in here that fell out, because I don't think it was this loose, but it might. Yeah, I don't think it's this loose, and it's, I don't know, kind of stuck on there like that. Yeah, that does not feel right. Yeah, that definitely is not right. So yeah, something's missing in there. Or I guess I could have a much thicker one of these parts, but I think what it is, there's plastic down in there that this catches onto. It's a little thin plastic thing that's in these, and it's not in there for whatever reason. So that's on there though, and once I find that plastic piece, I can just drop it back down in there, and the trem bar will then adjust and work. This isn't popping up too high, and it was pretty close. Not very close though. So let's see. And these things, I hate the little bars, because I always feel like they're just biting the string. That's almost already there. It's there. So that's there. Of course, all the others are going to make them go down. As this goes higher, this bridge is going to go up, and then the springs on the back are going to need to be adjusted to compensate for that. Sounds a little dead. Yep, it's coming up now. Now I can see that the bridge is beginning to angle upward slightly. Okay? And so what this means is the loosening of the claw, the spring claw, allowed this to go up a little too high. So when I go back, I will adjust the spring slightly now to compensate for that until it's fine-tuned. I've noticed a lot of times when I work on bridges to tune stuff up, the springs end up being, or the spring claw ends up being uneven. So it might be safe to say to expect to adjust and tweak these until they're perfect. And that's another thing that will be affected by a change in string gauges, is the claw tension. You'll need to re-tension everything here, change it a little bit based on these two little screws here, or whatever you've got back here, to match up. Okay, so now I'll try again. That's a little low, or a little high, I mean. That's low. And this lowered, but not enough. So because I know most of them went up, then when I tune it, it will lower this. But yeah, I kind of have a, I don't know, I don't like it so much when I hear about just block the bridge. Just block the bridge. Oh well, my guitar won't stay in tune. Or when I use the whammy bar, which is rarely or ever, then it always goes out of tune. And they don't say file the nut, they don't say adjust the springs, they don't say stretch your strings. They say, I just block the bridge. Well, if you're just going to block the bridge, then just get a fixed bridge guitar. Get a hardtail, okay? You don't need to, you don't need to be so drastic. I guess there's nothing really wrong with that, but in my opinion, that's drastic. You're stopping the functionality, the intended functionality of part of your instrument, to avoid perfecting several other components of the instrument. So what I would say is file the nut, adjust the springs, check the neck, make sure to stretch out the strings really good, because they have to stretch out a little bit. There's a little bit of break-in time for your strings before they're going to be, before they're going to be 100% perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to down tune these strings just slightly. Just a little tiny bit. Like maybe just slightly left of center on my gauge. So it's almost there, but just a little low, because my bridge is still tilted up slightly. Okay, I've done that. Now I'm going to tighten these just slightly, just a little tiny bit more. And what that's going to do is flatten the bridge out so that it's not poking up so much. It's okay if it pokes up a little tiny bit, especially if it's like a 6-screw or a fender bridge and you're floating it on purpose with one of these. It's going to tilt up slightly, but with this type of bridge, with the Wilkinson type of bridge, then and yeah, those pins seem like they're wanting to kind of come up out of the body in a scary way. Like it makes me think this is just going to come up off of it and just fly off of it. I don't like that. So what I'll probably do is get a dowel rod or some kind of piece and put it over this, and then hit that dowel rod with a hammer until these reseat. Because I don't, and they shouldn't come out. These shouldn't come out easily. If they do, then you might need to change it. You might need to put fresh pins in there, or you know, get in there and drill it out, and then put some dowel rods in it, and then re-drill so it's a good tight fit, because you obviously you don't want these coming up out of the body of the guitar, because this is high tension and it's very, very dangerous if this is something that can just come right up out of there easily. And I can see it's up a little bit, and I don't know if that's how it was originally. I know this came up some, obviously. I don't know if this one did, though. You definitely don't want that. And as I can see, it's close, but it's tilting. And so yeah, I'm going to be adjusting that for sure. And now these should be all slightly higher. It is, that's slightly higher. Still, it was still an E though, but it was slightly higher after the adjustment. This A is slightly higher, even though I tuned it quite a bit under. It was still A, but I tuned it under. So when I turned those screws on the spring claw, it brought all of the strings in tune, and then it brought them up above the tuning. So that when I loosen them to be right, then the bridge levels out. There. So close. And then now the bridge is nice and flat. That's good. And I love these old guitars from the 80s. I have an 88 Ibanez Roadstar, but it was the year 88 is when they actually stopped calling them Roadstars and started calling them the RS series. But I have an orange one, and I'm going to be doing some work on it. I don't think I'm going to change the pickups, because the pickups are so good on this guitar. It would just be an act of foolishness to change the pickups. They sound, I love how they sound, but the guitar, I love it, but it's kind of, you know, I don't know, it feels like kind of a cheaper Ibanez. I love it though. I mean, it's one of my favorite guitars, but it was made in 1988, and it is an RS. One of my best guitars ever was a Roadstar II. I was looking through the guitars at the pawn shop, and none of them were really standing out to me. And I saw one that did. It was black and it had white trim, and it was just gorgeous. It was like saying, get me, pick me, play me. And then so I told the worker, Sean, it was actually the guy named Sean who used to work there, but he was so intimate with the whole thing that they would just let him do whatever he wanted. And I said, hey, would you give me that guitar? And he went behind the counter, and I said, most of these are, you know, not the type of guitar I'd want. I said, but that one's standing out to me. I said, it really looks good. He handed it to me, and then I looked at it, and it said made in Japan. And then I said, that's way too cheap. I said, I have to buy that right now. And then he looked at it, and he looked really close at it, and he goes, yeah, this is a special one. He said, this one is special. And I love that guitar so much, and I ended up losing it, and I've regretted that, you know. It was a great instrument, and some of my real evolution as a guitar player happened on that Roadstar too. But my orange Roadstar I actually have hanging up on the wall, and it's a 2-pin, and I will likely upgrade the bridge on it one day, possibly. I don't know if it really needs anything done though. And it's got a push-pull, it's got a tapped, it's an HSS, and the humbucker's tapped so it can go SSS, and it's a rosewood, but you know, it's an Ibanez. It just plays so well. I love everything about it. So okay, we've got this new bridge on here. Sounds like it's in tune. Let's see. All right. A little buzzy. Not much though. No dead strings. Alright, so next part of the video I will have fixed the electronics and hopefully got the sustain bar on here, and we'll do a sound test. Okay, I went ahead and took this, a little decorative toy gavel, and positioned it over the pin, and then beat it with this real working soft-ended hammer here to level out the pins again, and this has laid the strings flat, which means the saddles need to come up. So you know, a lot of ways to handle this. I've got my tool here just to see what I'm looking at here. And let's get my old man glasses off here so I can actually focus. And it's looking pretty flat. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything. It's flat. So the neck is flat. And it looks like so yeah, the saddle's going up. We'll fix that. Of course, it lowered the strings down against the fretboard, and it tilted up the bridge slightly. So yeah, tweaking and adjustment needs to be done. I can't find any kind of plastic pieces that might need to go in the bridge right here. I'm almost positive this is the proper bridge, but I think there's supposed to be like a plastic kind of ring in here that this goes against. So I'm going to look around and see if I can't find that. Maybe it's a different one of these though that has the plastic on the end already, and I've just got it put somewhere else. Like, that's a distinct possibility. So I've got the solder out. Got my trusty, dusty soldering iron here. Guess where this was made? China. Yeah, and this has a readout, a temperature readout, and a temperature adjuster, and on-off, and it gets really hot really super fast. So it's very useful for electronics. So I'd recommend this. If you're not one of these people that's making PC boards with, you know, hundreds of solder points, and you're just doing electronics work on a guitar or on maybe an old 8-bit computer or something, these are fine. You don't need to get, you know, one of those machines that's like $2,000 or something. Of course, if you're doing, you know, important, critical work, and maybe you're, you know, doing a lot of like changing processors or adding sockets or something, you might want a better one, but this works pretty good for what it is. So now these pins, because you know these pins, if these come up and have enough force, then gradually they're going to slide up and unseat themselves and become dangerous. So the closer they are to flush, the more the force is being put on the screws themselves, and so you have slightly less to worry about there. These have a lot of room to come up, but to adjust this type of bridge, like I said earlier, these have to be loosened, and then the smaller pin screws have to be lowered to raise the front of the saddle, and then these need to be retightened for the new height. If you try to raise them while this is tightened down, you're putting too much force on the bolt, and it probably is going to break or strip or something really bad. So I don't remember, I think I used an actual tool for this part. I don't think I used a guitar wrench. One of these, oh man, after you buy a bunch of cheap guitars, how many of these little wrench kit things do you have, you know? Like, maybe they should have a checkbox on their instrument that says wrench, or maybe even like maintenance kit or something. Glary says gift package, and that's like any additional part that they're giving you fits into that definition of gift package. But then you could check a box and then they wouldn't send you a super cheap crappy Allen wrench that you're never going to use. A hex wrench, I'll call it. But nevertheless, that would be more work than what any Chinese factory with millions of guitars coming out one end is ever going to want to have to do. And so everyone has a extensive collection of super cheap crappy cables, super cheap crappy hex wrenches, super cheap crappy replacement strings that sound like crap. Yeah. Now, and then there are relatively good ones that come with like Kramer's, and those come attached to the headstock, so that at any time at all, if you need to do little tweaking adjustment stuff, then the tool is there to do that. So I've raised all these slightly, and hopefully that will give me enough room to do saddle adjustments without destroying anything. There you go. Oh yeah, that was super. Oh man, like it was meant to happen. That was so easy and perfect. Just dropped it in and whoop, it immediately started raising perfectly. And you know, that's something about the Wilkinson stuff, is it's almost kind of alien to the normal designs, like this really long bridge piece and the little bolt down attachment. They're cheap, but they're also high quality and smart. I'll say they're inexpensive, but they're very high quality and very smart the way they do stuff. And they're new. So like if you're, I would recommend, you know, in the modern guitar world, to get, you know, what you're wanting to get, go 2-pin instead of 6-screw. Even if you're looking at a Fender or something, go 2-pin instead of 6-screw. And you know, if you're not going to be doing speed metal, then stay away from Floyd Rose bridges, like expensive floating high maintenance bridges. If you're not going to do any kind of whammy bar note bending stuff, get a hardtail. You know, get an LP clone, or even get an LP if you know, like to tune your guitar a lot. And but don't get a 6-screw bridge if you could get a 2-pin, because they're so much better. Changing the point of, you know, of weight, changing where all of that weight is distributed to only 2 points, all the force is distributed to only 2 points, it really helps. It makes it so that you're getting better note variation, you're getting way better bending notes and stuff, and they're just all around. And anyone who's played on these Wilkinson, this is a WVS 52K. They have other ones. The 52 is slightly different. It doesn't have the little dip where the bolt adjusts, and the bridge is the saddles are slightly different. But these bolts, I guess, on that note, are compatible with either the 52K or the 50. And they make good stuff. And they also have some higher end Alnico 5 pickups. Wilkinson does pretty much everything. They do tuning machines, pickups, bridges, and they do cheap and then middle level, and I haven't really seen them do like really super expensive stuff, but I think that's more because of the process than the function. They function like high-end gear, but they don't cost a lot. So that's what's really super appealing about the Wilkinson stuff. Now I could use a gauge, like a feeler gauge, and grab up under these strings to see if they match the radius. But what I actually do is because I play more than I work on guitars, is I go by feel. I pick up the guitar and I play it, and I look really close and I adjust and tweak the strings to be the right heights off the bridge until I'm happy with where it is. I don't use, not too much anyway, I don't use radius gauges or radius feelers or anything like that. And that's just how I am. And there we go. It's not touching anymore. Okay. So that's pretty good where that is. Now the next thing I have to do is solder. I've got my iron out here ready. I'm going to solder the back. If soldering the ground wire fixes the connection problem, which I'm hoping it does, then of course I'm not going to bother taking this part out and dealing with this. If it doesn't immediately fix the connection problem, then I have to take this out and figure out what's in there, and that feels, I don't know. So yeah, probably going to have to take this out and resolder something. To get that done. But yeah, I don't recommend soldering on your bed. I have a little clipboard set up, and I have a extension cord that is serving to recharge my camera while I work. And there we go. Now this has been dealt with recently, so I really don't think I need to re-tin a whole bunch of stuff. Okay. Now, as crappy as that looks, that's as much as it needed to be done. It's on there, and it should have. I need a new multimeter, whatever you want to call it, because mine's little probes have been thoroughly yanked, and they don't worky right. So. Alright, next up I'm going to bring the cord back over here, and I'm expecting this to either short out or not even work at all since I just did that, but we'll see. Now I do use a Fender instrument cable that is tweed. I think it might still be shorting out, but so yeah, it's probably at the output jack, meaning yeah, it is, it's sounding. So I'm gonna have to, but it is grounded, so the loose grounding part is now taken care of. And if I was gonna do this for someone else, I'd use a solder pump and remove all the old solder and get fresh solder and go in there and cut the fine trim to the line so it's the perfect length to match up with the clasp that's on the spring claw and everything. This is mine. I'm not going to be mad at me as long as it's grounded. But yeah, I wouldn't do that to someone else's guitar, obviously. Just, you know, in a rush, kind of put the thing back together like that. So the soldering part for that anyway is done. Okay, so next I'm going to retune the instrument and then see about how high the strings are after the bridge is raised from retuning it. Good thing that that's low, because it means that everything's going to be coming up. And when it comes up, it's going to raise the bridge slightly, which is going to raise the string height slightly. Alright, that's tuned. I think that the high E is still too close to the neck. So this will probably need to come up slightly, but I don't know. These are all holding firm, which is odd. Once it's intonated, these will have to be clamped down, and these might need, the saddles might need to be adjusted forward or back for intonation. Oh, oh, yeah, okay. So this guy's definitely too low. These two are too low. So this is going to have to come up. I think this, this, and this. Yes. Yeah, it's dropping out. Of course, as we get closer to the nut, because the nut is higher than the middle of the neck, yeah, this guy's way, way too low. Okay, so bridge adjustments. Most definitely need to be made. Now, it's not cutting out as much. I think it was cutting out because of a combination of a slightly loose ground and a slightly loose ground and and something loose in the output jack. So that's going to be fun to deal with, but that's nothing. It's just resoldering, I'm sure. Nothing's broken in there. And you know, ideally, if you're going to be playing and not just collecting for the sake of having something neat, then, you know, replacing all the electronics and all that. And now, the pickups were grimy. This guitar was, you know, neglected when I first got it, and the bridge was bad. The pickups were bad. The pots were okay, but they needed cleaned. The knobs even look kind of nasty. These are, like I said, Dragonfires, which I love. I really recommend Dragonfires. If you're going to be, you know, picky and say they suck or whatever, try them out at least first before you start knocking them, because they actually are really, really good sounding pickups. Dragonfires are worth the money. Someone once said on a YouTube video that they found the source of Dragonfires, the cheap Chinese company, that Dragonfire is just buying crappy cheap Chinese pickups and putting their label on them. And so I investigated that by finding the pickups that looked like Dragonfires, but they were cheap Chinese, and I went ahead and bought some of them. I put them on a guitar that I made to be a wall-hanging Transformers themed decoration guitar that still plays. So I didn't care if the pickups were, you know, super awesome pickups or whatever. And even though they did look like Dragonfires, they did not have the same output, and they were not the same overall quality as the Dragonfire pickups. So I would conclude that Dragonfires are not just some super cheap rebranded Chinese pickup. They are their own thing. And Dragonfires actually come with enough wires to coil tap their pickups. Their pickups are usually on the hotter side. They are hot pickups with a lot of power and volume behind them. I would recommend Dragonfires to anyone who has a, you know, wants to try new sound, new pickups. If they're sure that their, you know, sound, or if they're sure their sound is, you know, being affected by low quality pickups, or suppose you just want hotter pickups, because it does matter. Hotter pickups are more output, and sometimes more output is more clarity. If you want softer, quieter rhythm background stuff, like maybe you're the rhythm player, maybe you don't want hot pickups. Maybe you should get nice Alnico single coil, something like that, and they have those. But if you want really hot pickups for a good price, Dragonfires are really super good. Yeah, I recommend them, and I've used them in lots of guitars, and these are Dragonfires, and I love them. They sound, they're loud, they're great. There's a lot of output. Now you can easily check the output of a pickup by using a multimeter and just hooking a guitar cable up to your guitar. You hook a guitar cable up to the output jack, and then you touch the top and the side of the output jack connector, and it will register the voltage coming from your pickup. And so when they give you the output of the pickups, that's where you're going to see it, and you're going to find out that it's this or that. And if it's one of these, like if it's a humbucker and it says 13 or something, or 15 or something, yeah, that's a hot humbucker. Most single coils are going to say when combined it lowers the overall output. So if you combine two single coils, you might get 2.5 or 3 on your little readout. If you are just one single coil, that may be 5 or 6 or something. So anything from 8 to 10 on a single coil is pretty hot. But humbuckers get hot. They're up there, and it does affect sometimes the output and clarity. So in that instance, there we go. Up. Okay. So I've eliminated most, if not all, the buzz. I can tell just by visual inspection, the A string is slightly low. I can tell by feel and by visual inspection. So you can trust your fingers. You know what you like to feel and how you like to play. And, you know, a standard measurement that is then used for whatever style of guitar they'll come up with, and then how you play should adjust that and fine-tune that measurement. So it shouldn't be that, you know, you get a guitar and it has all these perfectly set heights that are part of some standard, and then you go, oh, well, I don't want to change it because it would be different than this or that standard. What you want to do is how you play, you adjust your strings to match the feel from your hands. So, and you might find that the way you play is a little light on the high E string, and so you want to lower the high E string as much as you can so you're not pushing on it so much. You might find out that you're really heavy on the low E, so you want it to be higher so that when you press down you're not causing it to buzz. If you're one of these people that clutches down super tight on your strings, then you might want them higher. And if you're a really light-handed person and they're not going to buzz too much or have problems, you might want them to be very low, right above the frets. They make those radius gauges so you can find out the radius of a neck, so that you can match the radius of the neck with the strings, so that you can match the curvature of the saddles with the strings as they come out. But they are not the final standard finished work of your guitar. That's going to be all based on the player. And so I guess some people, maybe they don't care at all and they just want you to follow somebody's standard and match it up. But I don't think that that's really how it is. How it is the player is what it's tuned up and set up and fine-tuned to fit. So for me, usually I like my strings to be kind of low, but I do play kind of hard. So I might have a little bit of errant buzzing that doesn't affect the output. I don't want my guitar to buzz too much. Obviously, you don't want any dead strings. You don't want to hit a string and have scratchy, stopped, dead output where it's making contact with the frets above the fret that you're pushing down on, and then it's killing the string. That's obviously, that is bad. They make those standards, and it's usually a good, relatively good standard, especially for a guitar. But then you might find, you know, and the way it usually is like Ibanez guitars usually have really low action and they play really fast, and they quite often have thin necks, and even sometimes fixed bridges are really good from Ibanez. Fender, you're going to find out, usually has pretty high action, but they sound good, and there's a lot of adjustment potential on a Fender. The bridge is infinitely adjustable. So, and all of it depends very much on the player's style. You might have a heavy-handed metal player, and maybe they're chugging a lot and they're good rhythm and stuff, but they're really jamming down. Maybe they want higher action, even though they're playing relatively fast material. And then you might also then have maybe a cowboy chord playing guy or a jazz playing guy or something, and they for some reason want really low action and they have really light hands. That's okay too. And so the final word on the height of your strings is the player. It's never going to be, you know, some cue card with a standard. That's if you're working on it and you're going to go ahead and make it meet a pre-existing standard for an instrument. And so by that rationale, you shouldn't judge a player that says, oh man, I want that action to be higher, I really like my action to be high up, when you know you can get the action super low and it's still going to be clear and it's not going to buzz and all that stuff. What they want is the final word on their instrument, obviously. They want it to be a certain way. Now I'm looking, and by feel and by look I can tell that the D string looks like it's slightly low. It feels good though, it's super close. It looks like the G, B, and high E are matching up pretty good, but G is slightly higher than the rest. It matches up here, but then down here maybe it's a little higher. So what it looks like to me is the B string needs to come up slightly, and so am I using gauges and stuff? No, I'm looking at it and I'm feeling it with my fingers and adjusting based on that. So tell me I'm wrong or crazy, or what I'm doing doesn't work. I'll pick the thing up and jam and everything will work out fine for me. Okay, so oh, and that's so close right there too. And remember, there's a radius. If you have a 12 or a 14-inch radius, that's flat. You may be feeling like when you set up the string heights that you're making a flat row of strings. But if you're dealing with a 7.5-inch radius, then you're going to have a curvature to the strings. The strings, the high E is going to be lower by a bit than the next string up, which will be higher. It will form a, you know, kind of half circle, half spherical kind of arch shape. And that's where those feelers might come in handy, so that you know you're matching it up with the radius of the neck. This is a relatively flat radius. I can tell just by how the strings look along the neck. I don't think it's a compound radius. It's kind of a flatter, thinner, D-shaped neck. It's been heavily glossed. Some people don't like that. They call them sticky necks, and yeah, and I don't have a problem with that. But they do have those. They have necks that are, you know, there's so much lacquer and stuff on the back of the neck that it is literally sticky when you play it. And I don't know who would want that, but so I would probably, if you know, someone says, you know, I'm going to make you a custom instrument, tell me every little tiny thing you want, I'm going to say, I want a maple neck, I want jumbo frets, I want a 2-pin bridge, HH or HSS, because there's got to be a humbucker in there somewhere. I'd want coil tapping probably, so that I could have SSS or HSS or HH. You know, so my tastes are a certain way. I'd want a pacer body, definitely. That's my favorite guitar body. I like the Fender style headstock though, the music note shaped headstock, very much. And everyone's different. Someone else out there says, oh no, the Jackson one headstock is the best, or a reverse Fender is the best. Gibson is the best. The butt cheek mustache headstock. Okay, it's super close. So now let's see how much damage we've done here. So it's cutting out. There's definitely something going on there. So I can feel buzzing on the low strings. Just a bit. And there's a snappiness to it. Makes me think that the action is still slightly too low on the D and the A. Actually, the E is pretty close. But there, hear it? That. So I definitely want to get rid of that. There it is though, it's on the A. Okay. So yeah, but we have a point of reference to start with, and that means we're getting somewhere. Now after fine-tuning the instrument, I'm going to be adjusting the saddles to get everything just right so there's no buzzy, chirpy stuff going on. I may have to adjust the truss rod, probably not though. It's as flat as I want it to be. The bridge is coming up now, but because of how low the action is, I don't want to lower this too much more. If I lower it, then the saddles will have to go up much higher. What a lot of this is telling me is that I may have shimmed this neck for the old bridge, but because this bridge is so much lower that I don't need the shim to cause the back tilt. So by removing the shim, the neck would be angled up higher, and then there would be more distance at the pocket for the strings, and they'll sit slightly higher, and that could actually be what needs to be done. Raising the saddles too much higher is probably not a good idea. I could raise the pins slightly. It looks like the bridge is right on the body, right where the pins are, and so that's also another option, is very slight, mild adjustments to the height of these pins. The screw-in parts of the pins, mind you, not the seated parts, might fix all those problems. So just little tweaks and adjustments here and there to get this where I want it to be. Okay, and so yeah, that'll be the next part. All right, I'm going to go ahead and check these frets. Just see where I'm at with it. Pretty sure when I did this work before, I ended up with no rocking frets at all. Now, if you have no rocking frets at all, but you have a flat spot on a fret, that can cause buzzing too. So, and just because you have, you know, perfectly flat neck with flat, no rocking frets and everything, doesn't mean you're not going to get buzz from something else. So, the buzzing strings is not always because of a high fret here or there. Sometimes it is, but quite often it's something else. Now, I've done some adjustments to the bridge, and done some adjustments to the bridge to get the strings there. I'm going to have to intonate pretty soon though, because it looks like I've got some now to intonate, you're going to look at the 12th fret, the 12th fret harmonic, match it with your open string, and you want them all to be the same. And you bring forward or take back your saddle to fine-tune the string for your intonation. And you definitely want that. It doesn't just affect your upper end of your guitar, it affects the whole tonality of chords everywhere on the instrument. So you want to, there's none. There's no wobbly frets anywhere on the entire neck. I checked it again with my handy dandy gauge here. Now these gauges are made in the USA. And they're super good, and this was not expensive. This was made, machined in the USA, and you can get these. I'm not, you know, being paid by anybody for anything in my videos, obviously, but and it's got the standard Gibson and Fender lengths there. And I also have a fret rocker from them. So you can actually get really good priced and very high quality luthier tools here in America. I've got the strings pretty close to where I want them. I'm pretty happy with it. As I'm feeling them now, I think some of these might need to go up. There's the ever slightest bit of buzzing towards the nut. And when I checked this last time with the with the neck checking ruler there, I noticed there was the ever slightest bit of relief in the pocket, and that made me think maybe the pocket is sunk down, but from the pocket down is actually up a little bit, and of course that can give me the results I'm getting. Now the neck, the bridge is still popped up slightly, and I have tightened the claw as close as I can. So this could be that I need a higher tension spring or to add more spring to force that. I think one thing you can do in a case like this is bring the springs in one notch on each side, and then together that I think will add more tension, and it seems like I might need to, but it's slight, but it is popped up and it doesn't hurt it, because you know what matters is this point where the string comes off the bridge, and of course where it hits the nut and then goes down and to the tuning machines. So we're getting, it's pretty good though. Now I'm playing it unplugged. I don't know if you can hear that. Pretty good. It's not bad. It's very, very close. So now I just need to intonate the bridge, check the heights a couple more times, and of course I need to fix the short that is likely in the output jack. Now this old guitar, old from the 80s, I mean this isn't, you know, really as far as guitars can be, this isn't really actually old, but you know, I guess, yeah, I'm 47 and I was a kid in the 80s. I grew up in the 80s, and in the early 90s I was 18 in 95. So it doesn't seem very old to me to have a guitar from the 80s that's still good and usable and everything. But, you know, of course there are people that have 50s and 60s Strats and Les Pauls and whatever, Gibsons, or whatever guitar, you know. So I say old kind of loosely, but the design for these I think is just perfect. I love everything about it. I don't like crooked pickups up here near the bridge, and that's a thing with some Kramers that makes them stand out. The Beretta has a crooked pickup here, and it's purely aesthetic. It has nothing to do with functionality. It might make it a million times better. I just can't look at it, and I don't have any guitars like that. I don't want any guitars like that, but I do have you know, it shouldn't bother me so much because the single coils on Strats are like that. They're crooked, but I don't know, for some reason I just can't look at those humbuckers that are, you know, way angled next to the bridge, that are on a lot of Kramers. They're an iconic Kramer feature, is this crooked, you know, angled pickup, and people love them. But some people, I think maybe I might fit into this bracket, for the most part, could just have a bridge pickup and be totally okay. So that, you know, I am close to that, but the angle kind of throws me off and I really don't like how it looks. My strings are low towards the nut, and you know, that really the only way to fix that, once the neck is perfect and the heights are perfect and everything, is to put a new nut on it and cut the nuts ever so slightly higher. If you add relief, of course, then everything's higher up off the fretboard from the nut down. It can actually cause some problems with sound along the neck. So once it's intonated, I'm going to lock down the bridge, and then I'm going to, and I'll probably film this part, I'm going to pull out and check the output jack and just see what kind of fan damage we're looking at here. Alright. Okay, working on some intonation here. Now know that even when you get it tuned up, there's kind of a high end and a low end of the center point of your tuning, and even if you get your tuner to say everything is right there, is perfect, you might play a chord and think, wow, that sounds off. And so then you might want to judge if it seems sharp or flat to you and adjust it accordingly, even with that center point in agreement. You'll find that even with this, with the gauge in agreement, there's still the ever tiniest bit of play. Okay, we've got it even. There, that's intonated. See, I played the 12th fret, intonated. I played the 12th fret harmonic, intonated. I played the open string. There we go. And it looks like it's chillaxed a little bit on me there. Sounds it's a little low of the center. There we go. And now this is high anyway. I can tell your G string, haha, G string. Your G string is going to be your pickiest little bastard of a string. Where if it's not just right for your ear, your whole chord is going to sound like crap. So even if that G string is lined up in the middle, you may need to go lower on the sound even though you're keeping it in the middle. Oops. There we go. G is intonated. See, B is a little high. All three perfect. So, all the strings are intonated now. So on the 12th fret, harmonic, it's the same as the 12th fret. Pressed is the same as the strings all open intonation. And then so because that's done, I'm ready to clamp down the nuts on my bridge, because I'm pretty sure my heights are in a good spot. It's a very, very low action. So some buzzy stuff. If I were to play with my thumb, probably little or no buzzy stuff, but I play with the pick, tiny bit of acceptable, little bit of buzzing. We'll see. So yeah, with these Wilkinsons, once you've got your intonation, you've likely raised these, and now you have to tighten them back down, and there's a little washer underneath it that's gonna level out on the groove that's in the top of the saddle. And once that's nice and tight, then you've got yourself a precision bridge. It is precision. This has been adjusted and fine-tuned to achieve relative precision. And every one of these is cranked down. Obviously you don't want to go Neanderthal on it and really break stuff, but you want it to be nice and tight so that these don't scooch around at all. You don't want this to play around at all. And the strings are looking pretty good now. It's in tune. Next, I'm going to unscrew this guy here, and just, if I can, let me see how this is behaving. Yeah, it's got a thing here, so go ahead. We're going to go ahead and take off this crappy old plastic back plate. Now, the back plate that was on this guitar when I bought it was not the original back plate, and it's even like missing a screw. I think one of these, you can see that some of the screws are wrong. So somebody had a different black back plate, and what people used to do, what the thing to do back in the 80s was to just take this plate off right when you got the guitar, and then you threw it away, or I don't know, put out cigarettes on it, or used it as a frisbee, or you snorted something off of it. It wasn't used on the back of the guitar. But then somebody said, oh, well, it's, you know, the year, you know, 2002, I'm going to put a back plate on it, whatever. And honestly, this is an electrical grounding point right here. And I guess there's a reason to have this thing covered up, maybe. I don't know if this would ever do anything. But this is a grounding point for your instrument. I cover it up just to keep it covered up. But I'm not entirely sure that's really necessary. It's no big deal. I'm going to use this little fancy screwdriver I got that's full of little screwdriver tips, and works great. Gotta love them. And I guess I could nerd clip it to the inside of a pocket next to a pocket protector if I was, you know, that kind of nerd. I could clip it onto something. And but yeah, when I got this guitar, it was cheap, and this was my first Neptune New Jersey Kramer, which I had to have. I've said it many times now, but the second I found out that there were made in Neptune instruments, and it's actually said made in Neptune on the guitar, oh boy, I had to have one of those. Oh boy. As I look in here, it appears to me that there actually is no visible short on the output jack. And what that means is this fine mess that I've made here when installing those Dragonfires, that something in here is probably loose. So let me see though. Actually, that might, no, that's not loose. Neither one of those is loose. They're both on there really good. So somewhere in here is a possibly slightly loose connection. It's doing all of the, and these are dime pots that are from the 80s, and you know, unpopular opinion time, pots don't really mean much. Someone says, oh, I have to use 500K nickel pots in everything. Well, what a pot does is it will change the kind of gradient curve of volume as you raise and lower the volume. A higher K pot will give you a more fine-tuned, and these cheaper pots, like cheap dime 250K pots, will actually turn your volume knob into more like an on-off switch. As you start turning your knob lower, you won't notice much of a difference in sound, and then right before your knob is about to be at 0, the sound cuts out. So the cheaper your pot, the lower K and cheaper your pot, the more of a on-off switch you have for your sound and tone. Does that mean anything to me? No. Because what I am usually doing with the volume knob is using it to either have it on 10, full volume, or have it on 0, which is off. So for me, that really, it doesn't mean much. And that's how it is for a lot of people. It really, in fact, you probably could just put a switch in there, in here, instead of a pot, and have up be whatever, 250K or 500K, and have down be off, and then on the face of your guitar you wouldn't have knobs, you'd have switches, and then when you flipped a switch, then your guitar would be at volume 10 and everything would be on. We flip the switch, then it would be off and you would have no sound, and that would be very close to how I use volume knobs. Sometimes when I'm playing around, whatever, I might turn the volume down on something, but you know, there are reasons to not do that. If suppose you play something and you just created magic and it's the greatest thing you've ever heard, right? And you've adjusted your volume and tone knobs to create that said magic. Well, that means that from that point on, you have to imitate that exact setup with your stuff to get that same sound. What I would rather do is have the instrument cranked up as high as it can go all the time, and then either be off and on with the volume knob, and then do the magic with other things that can be saved. For instance, a modern digital effects pedal. You usually can create settings, and then once you reach that magic, you save that setting. Then all it is hitting a pedal on your footboard, and you get that magic. But if you have to turn a dial on your actual guitar, or several of them, to try to achieve some kind of setting that is going to get you what you want, get ready to have a lot of fun wondering why it doesn't sound the same when you think you turned everything in exactly the same way, and oh God. Now, somebody who, for whatever reason, is constantly doing crazy stuff with their knobs, maybe they need 500K pots with a really fine gradient curve of volume up and down, or tone, or whatever. I'm not like that. I'm usually bridge pickup, volume 11. And I usually have all of the tone stuff cranked up, and whatever fine-tuning adjustment and stuff is going on in my GNX3 workstation, or my DoD pedals, or possibly on my Boss amp, or on my 3 different mixtures, all the sounds going through, or whatever. It's going to be so many other things, and then this is just going to be on and off, 10 or 0 on the knob. So, do these pots matter? No. They don't really matter. So that's my unpopular opinion for you. Now, so when people read through those lists of all of these, you know, great things going on with their guitar, well, my guitar has alpha 500K pots, and then you should get a guitar because it has this type of pickup, and it has this type of pots, and it has this type of name on the headstock, and it has this type of strings, and this type, and I would be the one that says, I don't give a crap, and I also don't give a crap about that, and I don't give a crap about that, and I don't give a crap about that. Most of it is not going to matter, and if your playing style focuses on that, then it might overcomplicate things to a degree. There we go. So as we're looking in here, you can see my wonderful soldering job. Okay. And as I'm looking in there, well, that's not loose, that's not loose, that's not loose, that's not loose, that's not loose. Loose, not loose. Not loose, not loose, not loose. Wow. Well, we have the... So I guess it could be something hidden in this mess of interconnected wires, but I don't think so. I've done the grounding. I know that's taken care of. I don't think it's going to be my little green monster there. I guess it could be the bend in the connector here, where the where the piece goes in there, but I don't know. I really don't think that would be doing it either. You can actually get in here on some of these, especially Fender ones, and you can bend and tighten and change the connector, and you'll get a nice tighter fit. So that's a little simple, quick adjustment you can do, anyone can do, and you'd probably be surprised at how fast that fixes any problems that you might have, because some of those cheaper guitars have really loose output jacks, and so you put your output cable in there and it's kind of loose and finicky and you feel like it's not snapping in all the way. Those are very easy to fix. You just take the thing off, bend the connector, and then it's going to snap in tighter. So this, I don't know what's going on here. I don't think it's any of these. I don't want to have to take all this tape off to see. And of course there are dry solder points sometimes, so it could actually be a solder point that appears to be solid. But what I'm looking at here, this all looks good. It all looks like it's all connected the way it's supposed to be, and nothing seems loose or wrong. The loosest one is this one, and it is tied to the volume knob. Oh no, actually that's tied to the pickup switch. Hear how this guitar is echoing. Listen. Hear that? That's just me flipping the switch. It's resonating. It's like echoing. Just the... I don't know why. Does that mean that the wood means something? I'd hate to think that the wood meant something. Anyway. So, I'm going to try it again. Maybe I bent something right. I'm going to try it again. Alright, you got the strings all lined up right. The bridge is pretty good now. I need to find the ring for the whammy bar. And the connection here, this is not any wires. It's actually the it's the little connector piece inside that makes contact with the output cable. So to fix that, I'm going to have to get in there and bend it in, or just replace this, get a new one. For now though, as I'm done working with it as much as I'm going to, it does sound pretty good. It's got nice loud pickups, and switch works, and but yeah, this nice old kind of budget Kramer, kind of a Pacer look-alike, I guess, has a new bridge. So yeah, it's intonated. The action's really low. I like where the action's at, and it's pretty much even. I tried with the whammy bar, which I just kind of stuck the whammy bar in there and tightened it down, even though the ring's not in there. Of course, it went out of tune pretty fast, so some adjustments need to be made. But this guitar is never really going to be great with the whammy bar until the little break angle bar at the top of the headstock, you know, maybe that's gone or something. So So yeah, it's not 100% perfect, but it is good enough to play now, and this old thing's probably never going to be perfect. I need to find the ring that goes in this bridge, and then I can set the bar in it, and I don't know, these pins fit okay, but I don't know, it might be a good idea to take the pins and the little seating parts out and then, you know, put some new ones in there, some fresh ones and fresh larger pins, but I'm sure that's why they made the high E part of the bridge wide and long there, is to accommodate different slight differences in the widths of the pins, so this could be installed on more stuff. And you know, when you look online for these parts, you'll notice that sometimes they'll give a rough measurement. Sometimes they'll give a measurement in between those two areas, and that really helps, you know. But some guys, some people sell these and there's no measurements at all, and they're actually, you know, different bridges with different widths and stuff, and so it helps to know. I don't know why someone would put, you know, I guess unless they had no knowledge of what they were doing, or what the part was from, or what it's for, I guess, you know. Why they wouldn't put the width of the bridge at the pins, or at least, you know, put some measurement details in the sale so people know what they're getting. But with these ones, usually it'll have pretty detailed measurement and some numbers you can go ahead and measure your own stuff. So I knew beforehand that this was going to fit, and the strings line up pretty good, just, you know, all things considered. So yeah, another upgrade.